Human Rights Watch posted an article just a couple days ago. A comedian in Brazil, apparently, I believe he's been sentenced to prison for offensive jokes, comments about a congresswoman. They say a Brazilian court's decision to sentence a comedian to prison for offensive remarks about a congresswoman could have a chilling effect on free speech, Human Rights Watch said today. We have a First Amendment in this country. You're well aware. I'm going to go through a few stories today about comedians who are facing real and serious ramifications in different countries that don't guarantee free speech. I've known about these stories for a long time, right? There's a comedian named Rafinha Bastos. He's actually I think he's in the States now, from Brazil. This is a story from 2011, and Rafinha, being from Brazil, where they do not have free speech, he's actually been subjected to potential criminal penalties, lawsuits, etc., which we'll go through after the first story. Now, the first story is recent. It's from a few days ago. This dude is going to go to jail for saying bad words, for saying bad ideas. That can't happen to you in the United States for the most part. We do have limits, right? Threats and things that may actually lead to violence. What's scary to me today, and why I want to highlight this, is that the argument as to why some speech is not okay in the U.S., incitement to violence, is that it directly leads to someone getting hurt. The idea being, if you say, hey, person, do X, and they do it, well, you directed them to do it, right? Or if you repeatedly make threats against someone and say, I want this, I want that. One of the stories I'm working on for later today has to do with all the times Democrats were saying things like punch them, etc. And the escalation is there. And even what the Democrats have said is considered protected speech, even though they're saying things like, I'd like to do X to him, and wouldn't it be great to do this to that person? And it's like, okay, you're getting close, but we still protect that. However, the far left is now claiming, the regressive left, they're in Congress, and they say words are violence. Words themselves. What they're claiming now is when people use hate speech, when people make offensive comments, you don't need to directly tell them to commit violence. The fact that you're hateful will result in that violence. They're trying to, you've got this line, right? And it says direction, action. You directed someone, they took an action. We understand that point. They're now trying to get rid of the direction part and put joking about it or getting close to it or just hating someone leads to violence. They're trying to remove that middle part. These examples of what's happening in Brazil should make it very clear to all of us. We should never allow any line in terms of free speech to be pushed, lest you end up with this like this guy. And the reason this is particularly scary is that he said offensive things to a politician. That's one of the things that makes our country great, is that you can say whatever the hell you want to a politician for the most part. You can't incite to violence, but you can give them the middle finger, and you can say all the worst things you can think of about what they are and what you think of them. Let's read the story. On April 10, 2019, a federal judge sentenced Danilo Gentili, a political conservative, to 6 months and 28 days in prison for a video he posted on social media 3 years ago. In the video, he ripped up a notice he received from the Chamber of Deputies asking him to take down offensive tweets he had written about Maria do Rosario, a Workers' Party member of Congress. Stuffed the pieces in his underwear, pulled them out, and mailed them back, making obscene comments about her. Now, there may be a national health issue with rubbing something on your junk and then mailing it to somebody else. I don't know. That might be criminal, if you did that. But let's. Human Rights Watch is on his side, right? So I think it's still protected, But let's read on. No one should go to prison just because they said something offensive, no matter how distasteful their remarks, said Maria Laura Canino, Brazil director of Human Rights Watch. Instead, people who want to go to court over injuries to their reputation should be required to seek redress through civil law. The federal judge found that the video includes highly offensive and reproachable content that makes very clear his intention to offend the congresswoman. So what, Brazil? Gentili remains free while he appeals the sentence. Criminal defamation laws are incompatible with the obligation under international to protect freedom of expression. International law, or I don't know. Human Rights Watch said. Copy editor. Brazil's criminal code includes the crime of injuria, for which Gentili was found guilty, which penalizes offenses to a person's dignity or decorum. The crime of difamação, defamation probably, defined as an accusation that harms a person's reputation, and the crime of calúnia, defined as falsely accusing someone of a crime. Gentili was convicted of injuria. Brazil should eliminate those 3 crimes from the criminal code. Offended parties should be required to seek damages through civil litigation, and no one should be imprisoned for what they say. Human Rights Watch. I don't know a whole lot about what you're doing, but I love what you're doing here. 100%. God bless the First Amendment. God, the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and all of the amendments that have come after it that have made this country better and better and better. Seriously, look, I think, you're going to get into a debate with people over the taxation amendment. I don't know which one that is. The amendment that allowed for the income tax. A lot of libertarians don't like that one. But I think for the most part, the idea of amending the Constitution with, how this, what is it, like a 2/3 majority or something? Anyway, the point is, the fact that our government can adapt and change and become better is a really, really good thing. It is. We have to recognize, however, it can possibly go bad. You look at the Second Amendment, and there's currently a debate over its interpretation. A lot of people say that it means you should have a right to own guns. People on the left are saying, no, it means that there should be a well-regulated militia, meaning the government should control it. Personally, I think based on the understanding of what regulated means at the time and many interpretations of it, as well as the arguments on the left and the right, it sounds like it really does mean everyone should have a right to own a weapon when you consider what a militia is. Militia is, for the most part, kind of the citizenry self-organizing into a defensive force. And in order for that to be possible, individuals need to own their own weapons. I personally, based on what I've read, I don't think, a lot of people have claimed that it's about fighting back against a tyrannical state. I don't think so. The security of a free state, I think it's from foreign, if you're going to defend your country, getting everybody armed. And there's that saying, I don't know if it's a real saying or what, but it was something like some communist dictator or whatever said, it would be impossible to invade America because there's a gun behind every blade of grass. The point I'm trying to bring up with the gun thing is that we've made concessions, and we have laws going through Congress, and we have the interpretation through the Supreme Court. It's gone a little back and forth. I remember in Illinois, it was completely outright illegal, and the Supreme Court was like, no, you can't do that. We got a Second Amendment. The reason I'm using the Second Amendment is because it's easier to shock people, right? When we talk about speech, people say you got to defend free speech, but now you got the left saying, oh, no, words are violence. And they're quite literally claiming that Dan Crenshaw, Republican, saying the word unbelievable about Ilhan Omar, I swear to God, that was his criticism, literally a harumph, not like, it's very tepid criticism. She claimed that was inciting, violence against her. What happens next? If that's an incitement to violence, and that's how they're trying to push the line, at what point will we start seeing bills enter Congress that say it's not infringing on speech, you're allowed to have your speech, but some speech leads to violence? Look at how they're treating guns. Yes, the Second Amendment says the right to bear arms shall not be infringed, but some guns, you see the problem? And this is coming from someone who actually leans left on the issue of guns. Leans left. I think there's an inherent challenge in the difference between speech and guns, but ultimately it's like, one of the best arguments someone said to me is, if I need to get a permit and take classes to own a weapon, then you need a permit and take classes to speak. And I'm like, therein lies a serious conundrum. The Constitution is what it is. It can be amended. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure we don't infringe on the rights granted in the First, Second, Third, Fourth, Fifth, etc. And so that's a challenge. And I've been thinking a lot about it because I'm like, man, I think, the ease and access and mass production of guns has brought us to a point where we need to start considering the limits. We do have limits on speech, incitement to violence. But at the same time, I'm kind of just like, some people say the First Amendment is defended by the Second. I'm not necessarily in that camp. I just think that if we approach the Constitution as a whole for what it is, I'm more concerned with losing the right to speech than people losing the right to guns. And eroding the right to own guns is a step towards eroding the rest of the Constitution, which it is being eroded. It's absolutely being eroded. So the First Amendment protects, 5 different things, of which one is speech. speech, the press, religion, redress of grievances, speech, press, religion, redress of grievances, and what's the last one? What am I missing? Normally I have it. Whatever. I woke up at 3 a.m. because I got a tornado warning. My phone was going what? And so I'm a little woof. But anyway, I don't want to make this a gun video. I don't even know why I'm talking about guns. The point is, Human Rights Watch, spot on. Brazilian comedian is going to jail. I want to quickly go over these other stories because we got a Canadian story and the other Brazilian story. I don't want to go too long on this video. Tech Dirt. Canadian comedian plans to appeal $42,000 for a joke that insulted someone. This is from 2016. They say, I know Canada doesn't have a First Amendment like we do here, even if people like to joke about being the 51st state. But it still seems quite bizarre that comedian Mike Ward has been told to pay $42,000 for making an offensive joke about a singer named Jeremy Gabriel. Ward is planning to appeal. I'm not sure where the story is going. It's just another really easy to find example of what happens when you don't have a right to free speech. How can you be a comedian? How can you make art? How can you live when you never know what you can say? If you say something and someone finds it offensive, they'll come for you. Look at Count Dankula. Did anybody actually get offended? Nope. No, seriously, nobody did. There was no criminal complaint. There was no offense complaint. It was the police deciding to just do it and say, it's offensive. We said so. So at what point do you say, well, I don't know what joke I can or can't say. I'd rather err on the side of just doing, like really family-friendly jokes. Like, here's one for you. A grasshopper walks into a bar, and I can't remember that joke, but it was from Family Guy where he says something like, the bartender says, hey, we have a drink named after you. And he goes, really, you have a drink named Charlie? The joke is that the drink is a grasshopper. Whatever, the point is they're family-friendly jokes, and that's what comedians will only start doing. This comedian challenged a politician. A conservative challenged a politician and now finds himself being sentenced to prison. You thought it was bad with conservatives getting banned on Twitter? Don't go to Brazil, because you also have this. Rafinha Bastos, I don't believe is a conservative. This story actually talks about how he's kind of like Jon Stewart or Bill Maher. But in this story, let me see if I can find it. He actually, check this out. In one case, government officials in an Amazon state are suing him because he describes the state's inhabitants as ugly in his routine. More seriously, prosecutors here recently questioned Mr. Bastos about an admittedly offensive joke about his rape victims. Do they mean his rape? I don't think Rafinha's ever raped anybody, but it was an offensive joke. There was another instance, which I don't have pulled up, but I believe it was something like Rafinha was a host on a television show, and he made a really offensive joke where someone asked him, there was a pregnant celebrity, and they said, do you still think she's attractive now that she's pregnant? And he said something about how he would do her and the baby, like making a joke where he'd do her with the baby inside her or whatever. And he got threatened with criminal prosecution over making a tasteless joke. That's a tasteless joke, right? I get it, but I'm like, oh, come on. You're crossing the line with the baby, like, no. But, comedians are trying to push the line. They're trying to test the boundaries, and they need the freedom to explore without being threatened to go to jail. If you go on TV and start joking about, actually hurting people, well, hold on. There's a bit from The Whitest Kids You Know where he gets really close to threatening violence against the president, but he frames it in a very specific way where the lawyers ensured him, this is what you can or can't do. That's them pushing the line and dancing on the razor's edge, getting as close as possible. That's what comedians do. And I think comedians should be allowed to do it. But here we are. Here we are for Brazil, and this is kind of scary, I grow increasingly concerned with foreign travel because of what seems to be the dramatic escalation due to social media. And the more notability I gain personally, the UK scares me. I could say something here, and then if I go to India or Pakistan or some other country, I could be arrested. It's seriously crazy because there are conservatives who get notices from Twitter saying that you're wanted for blasphemy in this country. Now, the conservatives get angry about it, but I think it's a really good thing. It's a really good thing. You are not going to be banned for blaspheming. But wouldn't you like to know? If let's say someone says, hey, we're going on a trip, we're going to travel through these countries, you're going to be like, whoa. They're going to kill me for blasphemy in that country. It's good that Twitter is telling people about these things. This kind of stuff is scary because I also have to recognize the amount of traffic I'm getting means I could say something offensive. Go to Brazil and they'd say, yup, you made a video, it was offensive, and now we're either kicking you out or we're going to fine you or something's going to happen. Granted, Brazil is a really, really, really nice country. It is. This is just kind of the worst, well, not the worst part about it, but it's a really dangerous thing about it. I will end by saying this one thing. God bless the First Amendment and the foresight of the Founding Fathers, the entirety of the Constitution. I think we've done a fantastic job. We've slowly made this country better and better and better. We've improved civil rights for everybody. It is the freest, most prosperous nation in the history of the planet. And that's awesome. It really is. And these stories scare me. I want other countries to guarantee the right to expression and free speech as well. But with that being said, Brazil's pretty awesome in terms of hanging out, Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo. They're all really fun places. Very passionate people. I really, really like Brazil. It's one of my favorite countries. I actually have a 10-year visa for Brazil, and I've been down there to cover a bunch of stories. And I think they have issues with the favelas, but I think Brazil's actually been doing a really good job in improving the lives of their poorest in the favelas. I'm not an expert. I'm not from Brazil, and I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've been there. But this kind of thing makes me sad because I just think about being at, in Copacabana and just sitting on the beach and you for $1 you get a coconut and you're hanging out. Man, good memories. Seriously, Brazil is a lot of fun. So I seriously hope that something better comes of this. Maybe precedent he can appeal it. Precedent can be set. But enacting a free speech constitutional protection is not an easy thing to do. And thank God our founding fathers did this first. While I'm somebody who is more center-left on the issue of guns, I also have to resign myself to the fact that I'm so concerned about the right to free expression, I have to recognize the rights of those who want to bear arms too. It's like, you know what? I get my free speech. Everyone gets their free speech. It's one of the most important things for any free nation. At the same time, they guaranteed the right of people to bear arms, as well as other rights. And so I have to be like, okay, it's begrudging to me to be like, man, I am concerned about, the development, escalation of guns. But it is what it is. And I'll also add technology changes things. The internet has changed things. 3D printing has changed things. So I think trying to restrict things is the wrong way to go about it. But it's tough. It really is. At the end of the day, it's all about free speech. I'll leave it there. I'll have another video for you coming up at 1 p.m. Stick around, and I will see you then.